everyone. Welcome. We're just getting a whiteboard for Caroline, so there'll be a few moments. Welcome, thank you for attending, and well done for getting a ticket. We're completely sold out, so well done for being here. Thank you. Just to remind you that we are live streaming, so we just ask you to be careful of the cameras when you're moving around. There will be a break at 11:45, so if you can wait until then before popping out, we really appreciate it. It'll be for 15 minutes, and then lunch will be at 1 o'clock for an hour and 15 minutes. And there'll be a comfort break in the afternoon. And just to make you aware that you'll be on camera, maybe. So we'll tell you more about that later. And if you've been to Alternatives before, you know that we just like to start our events with a few moments of silence. So it just helps us to arrive in the space and leave behind our week and day. So we just ask you to close your eyes if you wish, and just share 2 or 3 minutes silence with us. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, just a bit of housekeeping as well. If we can make sure our mobile phones are off, just because it interferes with the cameras, and if you can switch them to silent, that would be great. The bathrooms are just outside the main door to the right, and we have some of Caroline Myss's books for sale as well. So some of you may have seen me playing with the archetype cards as we came in, and I gave a few of you some cards. And I chose the Nature Child when I chose mine, so that's what I'm working with today. So it's a real pleasure to welcome back Caroline Myss to Alternatives. She has a long bio that you're all aware of. She's written many books, and she's a New York Times bestselling author. And she's really concentrating on her online work more. So today we have a short day with her, but if you want to delve deeper into the work she has to offer, do go on her website and join one of her online classes. So it's a real pleasure. Please welcome back Caroline Myss.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Hi. What a world we live in. Have you noticed how fast it's changing? Well, this workshop's on choice. And there was a time when this wouldn't have been a subject matter at all. But that's not the world we live in now. So the door that I want to enter into is one where I want to position a little bit about the significance of the time that we're living in and the importance of the power you have. And when I lecture about this, part of my frustration is that I find that I never can quite capture the right words to communicate exactly how powerful individuals are these days. Things have changed. We're not the same people as our elders were prior to World War II. This is a different world. And it's not just the obvious things that we see because of the internet and the kind of physical, territorial, technical world that we live in, but we ourselves, the wiring, the world behind our eye, the way we are as a species is fundamentally different than the people who lived before the nuclear age. Our wiring is different. Our sensory system is different. Our DNA is morphing. We are not the same. And I think it's critical to understand that. Our sensitivities are different. Our immune system is evolving. We are no longer, before we were taught that we were 5 sensory creatures, that we could see and hear and taste and smell, and that defined who we were. That's how we were taught when we were kids. You have 5 senses. You can see and you can hear and you can taste and touch and smell. That is so wrong. That doesn't even begin to teach your sensory system. You have emotional senses, psychic senses, spiritual senses, intuitive senses, intellectuals. You have such a sensory system that if you could see yourself, I would pop you out and you would be this active circle, this active sphere of energy. And if I could draw you and you could actually see you and I could animate you, you would look like latitude and longitude, the latitude and longitude lines, and that's how you should think of yourself. You should actually image yourself as latitude and longitude. Wait a minute, time out, because everyone's going to look at that and I'm going to say, what are you doing? I'm over here. So get over here. Because I don't compete with whiteboards. You have to put that over here. Okay, and you sure those pens work? Okay, I love this should do. It's kind of like, there's so many cute things about Britain, so many cute. I just love you guys, I love you guys. I mean, it's, oh, really? So cute. Okay, enough. Now, back to work. Among the many things that have shifted, the many things, is our relationship to the speed at which we create things, to the speed at which we perceive, to time and space, and we're going to go into all of that. I need a pen in my hand. To our relationship, to the speed at which we actually perceive, comprehend, and then respond. Okay? And that, a way to think about that is that, do you remember when you used to get letters? Do you remember when you actually got a letter in the post? Okay, and that meant that someone actually took the time. Now here's the operative word, time, to sit down and write. Now grabbing an implement like a pen to write, and the speed at which that took. So that took time, and that meant that the person actually thought it through. What am I going to write this person? And then they would think, what words do I want to use? And every word was chosen with a little bit more time. Not the speed at which send, or this, where you are actually removing letters from words. Because the letters are now handicaps. much too much time to spell out a whole word. Now, what I have to emphasize here is, how is time created? How do you create your relationship to time itself? What is time? Time is a conscious construct. You create your relationship with time by what you focus on. Time does not exist in and of itself. How you create your relationship with time is done through the tasks you engage in. The briefer the tasks, the less you touch time. Which is why what we have in common now is this sense that time is moving faster. And what we all have in common is that we are finding ways to do things faster, to do more things at once, to make cause and effect happen faster and more rapidly. Are you following this? Okay, so are we really changing this thing called time, or are we squeezing more consequences into 1 hour? That's what we're actually doing. We are managing to squeeze more consequences and choices into 1 hour. And therefore, when there was a time when we used to write letters, where it would take us 2 hours to write a letter, and then that letter would take 2 to 3 days to reach this one person, you. Then you would read this letter, and then maybe take 4 to 5 days to respond. Let us imagine that the letter contained a question. How do you feel about this? And now you had 2 to 3 days to think, how do I feel about this? And then you reflected on that, because you had to make a choice. And maybe in that time of making a choice, you had this understanding that what you were choosing was of significance, and you understood by that other people were tied to the consequence of the choice you were about to make. That it wasn't just about you. That in fact, the choice you were about to make would have consequences to this person and that person and that person and that person and that person. That you recognized, because you were taking, here's the operative word, time, to reflect on the significance of this choice. That in fact, you really were connected to an entire tapestry of human beings. So you reflected on it. And now you wrote out, and that letter goes back, and it reaches this person. So that one choice of yours, in fact, played out over 8 to 9 days. Said differently, it took 8 to 9 days of time to take one cause and set the consequence of it into motion. Today, we do it in 8 seconds. Send an email. You want to do this? And this is annoying me. That's the amount of how we have reduced, we've taken time out of our equations. So we are now setting something into motion within seconds that would have taken a week. This is how we take time out of. So now imagine that we are doing that to all the other decisions that would have taken 8 days. We are now times 8, times all the minutes, times all the seconds of those 8 days, we are squishing into an hour or 2. and setting those hundreds and thousands of choices and consequences into motion, and that's the speed at which you're living your life. Now, the world we live in now, we have to look at that the speed of change has become immediate. It's no longer measured in linear day by day by day, like it once was before the nuclear age, where we were allowed the illusion that this is going to take 8 days to get there. Nothing takes 8 days anymore. Nothing. Tell me what takes 8 days. Maybe getting a package, but now Amazon wants to do it with a, what do you call that thing? A drone. I order it and it goes boom on my roof. Wrong, Amazon, you know. Now they need to hire someone to go on my roof. All right. But that nothing can happen fast enough for us. Nothing. Absolutely nothing can happen fast enough because we want everything in the now. It's just not fast enough. I hear something, and it's not me. All right, nothing can happen fast enough. So, all change is immediate. And this is something we really need to imprint in you, because it's made people terrified about making choices. 2, all change is universal. Whatever happens, it used to be that we lived in a world of the illusion, to speak Buddha, that what happens here in our country, whatever country you live in, whatever happens in some other country did not touch our country. That somehow or other, if we were protected by water, boundaries, this or that, democracy, parliament, that what happened in those countries couldn't touch our country because we were special. Now, whatever happens anywhere while you sleep can wipe out your bank account. We're not protected from anything. 0. Because the world, the power zones have shifted from the physical world to the energy world, just like your health has. There's no difference between how you treat your health in the energy field of your health and the energy field of power within the global village. You cannot speak of the energy field of the human immune system and say, that's the only energy field there is. Politics has an energy field. The global village has an energy field. And this is where the power plays out. Unless you get that, you are not seeing the wholeness with accuracy. What we see in the physical world is the caboose on the train. What I see when I do a medical intuitive reading, if you go to a doctor, by the time something's in your body, it is the caboose on the train. It's too late. By the time it's in your physical body, where were you when it was in the engine? Were you sleeping? Where were you when your energy field was going zzz, and letting you know that you were being electrocuted with negativity, that you were off balance? What choices were you making then? Were you asleep at your energetic wheel? Where were you then? What choices are we making now as our world is vibrating in inflamed crisis at the energetic level? It's screaming. what happens in the physical, what we actually see, we have to pay attention finally to the laws of that spiritual teachers have been screaming for centuries. What you see in front of you is the result of energetic madness. You're responding to cabooses, like in your body. When someone says to me, how do I handle this? I don't look at your illness. This is the mess. I have to look at the energetics in your engine. Because if you can't make choices to redirect your engine, what good is treating your caboose? It has no authority in your train. None. Now these rules, we have been dealing with the new rules for over half a century, and we're still not driving the train right. Somehow we're still driving the train from the caboose. And we haven't applied the truth to the rest of life. That in fact, our body has an energy system, but so does everything else. Nature has an energy system. The political world has an energy system. The religious world does. What body of life does not have a chakra system? Absolutely nothing. Everything revolves around the same laws. God is law. God is not love and any of that Hallmark card nonsense. If you want to understand the nature of God, it is law. Everything operates on law, and that is it. If you want a religion, that's fine, have one. But that is a costume party. The nature of God has to be able to leave this planet and go visit other galaxies. And that's the way it is. And the choices you make have got to be able to leave this planet and still make sense. Because that time has come. We are the generation that are living through the breakdown of mythologies. And mythologies, a myth is something that contains God. Mythologies that no longer fit who we are. The stories of religions that no longer fit who we are, and they haven't been able to adapt. And this is not a criticism of religions at all. It's no more than I would criticize the coal mining era because the solar era has begun. Any more than I would have criticized candle makers because the age of electricity has arrived. One age is ending as another begins. We are standing at the precipice of the beginning of the galactic age. Galactic. Where we're finding new planets out there, and we know that there's extraterrestrial life. The idea of maintaining that we are the only planet with life. We've got to take our heads out of our celestial tuchus and stop telling ourselves this nonsense so that the choices we make begin to reflect a truth that our consciousness is capable of holding on to, instead of telling ourselves a myth because we can't bear to have a truth. Now, I'm going to hit a pause button here and come over here and tell you that in my humble opinion, which is not so humble, but I'll present it that way. I deeply believe that there are any number of illnesses, and I don't even want to call them illnesses. There comes a point where I no longer think they're illnesses, but conditions, challenges, that the human body, that the human energy system experiences. Things like autism, things like conditions of the neurology, sufferings that are brought about neurologically, diseases of the skin, DNA coded wrong. There's a family member of mine who has what's called brain freeze. She's been in a brain freeze for 41 years. She's been in bed. She can follow us when we go walk across the room. She can't speak. She cannot speak. And I know she's conscious. We can't get in and she can't get out. Okay. And Julia's been that way since she was 19. But this isn't, but I know the way I know things that I know. That what limits us from penetrating that realm of healing. And I don't even want to call it healing. I don't want to call it that because you're presuming it's an illness. And I don't like that model because I no longer think it's an illness. I think of it as a mechanical thing. Is that what is required is that that a person needs to have an entirely different understanding of the mechanism of this whole thing. It's not enough to look at that condition. Just looking at that condition won't work. Understanding how that condition works has to be done by understanding a much larger model of the universe itself. Are you with me here? That the kinds of choices a person has to make, you have to start making choices that blow the lid off yourself. You have to blow the lid off yourself. You have to literally blow yourself out of the water. You have to stop thinking small and start making choices that say, you know what, I got to get out of myself. I am thinking like an ordinary mortal, and this is not working. This is not working. These choices are just too small. Now, I'll give you an example. Now, I've been at this I'm in my 4th decade, though I look smashing for having been around so long. Now, but you know what? I never stay in the same place because I'm just intrigued with us, and I'm intrigued with this time that we're living in. And I'm intrigued with everything about us, and I'm intrigued with what is going on now. And I know that we are living in, for me, what I consider to be the greatest turning point in the history of civilization. That's a big, fat sentence I've just thrown out. The history of civilization. I think there'll come a time when historians in the future will look back and they will study what we who were alive now did during this time, how we navigated this time, far more than how people navigated the depressions of 1929 or the economic upheaval or the French Revolution or other times. Even World War II will pale next to how we navigated these decades of this era. Because the decisions made at this time, as we shift into as we shift into celestial consciousness, as we figure out how to position ourselves to become members of a galactic community, how we decide whether we will become planet Earth and a community of humans, or whether we blow each other up because we can't bear the idea of equality. The choices facing us are going to require we blow the lid off ourselves and our egos. And the truth that we are not sharing human beings except with blankets and small pieces of cake during bad storms. But the idea of sharing nations or sharing status or sharing the planet, sharing resources, or becoming a new people entirely, shedding our skin, literally, is something we've never had to face. What I'm beginning to realize that, hey, I'm telling you, this is as hard for me as it is for you. I'm sitting around thinking, I don't even know if I want to teach this. Not kidding you, people. But because it hurts to teach, I think there's a drop of truth to it. And I wish there wasn't. But I think if we look at what this call is in us now, and we look at what's happening in our world, we realize there is, and believe me, this isn't political. I'm going to start in the beginning, but we have to look at why are we alive now? What is in one is in the whole. What's happening in the whole is in one. We're the engines of what's happening outside. And what's happening outside is in your biology, and it's in your psyche, and it's in the illnesses that we develop at the time. We are the engines of everything, and everything becomes part of our biology. Our biography and biology is one and the same thing. And the collective biography of our era becomes part of our immune system. Today I was watching the news and I see something about the North Korean Kim Jong idiot has poisoned his half-brother. But what they were saying is they were commenting, and perhaps you heard it, about all the poisons this country has created. And I sat on the bed and I thought, what is the matter with us? That this is how we choose, the choices we make to create poisons, to kill other human beings, and that this is celebrated as a success story. Okay? These are the kinds of choices that we human beings now. I'm going to take us through 3 levels of us. And at the end of the day, I'm going to go through a list of choices that you're going to answer. And these are the types of questions that can be game changers for you. Game changers for the rest of your life. Because when you talk about choices, I'm not sure what you define as the kind of choice like I'm talking about. But I'm talking about probably the different level of choice than you're talking about. You may think about it as something like whether or not you get your way, which is not me at all. Not me at all. I've learned to understand choice in a very different way, and it's that significant. Going back to what I started about emphasizing that now every change in our world has an immediate consequence, which means every change you make in your world has an immediate consequence. And you make changes through choice, which means every choice you make in your world and I don't care how big, how little, has an immediate consequence. Where do you draw the line as to where the consequences stop? Where do you think all your consequences, that you can hide a consequence of any one of your decisions? Anybody? Seriously, do you actually think there's one choice you can make that you can hide the consequences from anybody or anything, including your biology? Can you lie to your biology? Can you do anything and hide the consequences from your mind, body, spirit, biology, friends, your environment, your life, your soul? Hello, I'm talking. Okay, pay attention to that. All you think, right, but you can't. So just pay attention. When somebody says, and if you ever, again, use the equation, I just want to know how what is the one thing that made me sick? You just remember how many choices, that every second includes emotional, psychic, mental, spiritual, physical, subconscious, preconscious, postconscious choices. For every choice, it has that many dimensions. So I want you to say, which of your 5 million choices that you made this hour do you want explained? When you say, but I just want one reason, and wouldn't we all? That equation, that there is one reason for every one thing that happens to you, is no more. Are we in agreement now? Not ever again. Don't ever go there. Throw that off your train. And do not think that there is an off-planet God somewhere that deals in logic just for you, that is doing calculations on your behalf, that has organized this entire universe around you, so that there is a reason why events, especially if they make you unhappy, stop it. So, everything's universal. Secondly, all change in your life is immediate. Pay attention to that. Every choice you make has an immediate consequence, and I do not care that you can't see it. That you can't see it is of no consequence to me. Zero. And it is of no consequence to the invisible world either. So if you need to go have a hissy fit, go have one. But nobody in the invisible world cares. Every choice you make has an immediate consequence. And on the positive side, every prayer you say has an immediate answer. It is irrelevant that you don't know how that works. Who cares? I will refer you to the book of Job. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth, said Yahweh to Job. One of the greatest lines ever written in the scripture. Where were you when, and I will have you write this down and look at it every morning. Change the line so it reads, and put your name in it. Where were you? Now drop your name. When I laid the foundations for your life. And imagine God asking you that. Where were you? I don't remember consulting you when I organized the path that would become your life. And you're questioning me. You should get up every morning, and the first thing you say is go to that prayer and say, and picture God saying to you, good morning, and where were you? What's your name? Mary. Where were you, Mary? When I organized the foundations for your life. And you're questioning me. Where were you when I hung the stars and hung the planets? This is Job. And I laid the shores for the oceans. Where were you? Because I don't remember consulting you. I don't. Where were you, Mary? Position yourself accordingly and get on with your day. That's your prayer in the morning. Where were you, Mary, when I laid the foundations for your life? That's your morning prayer, because I don't remember consulting you, but I hung the stars for you and the planets. Who could not begin their life saying, "Mwah! What a day." Got it? Get your head on straight. Okay. And because you are so powerful, because everything you do is immediate. Everything you do has so much power in everything you choose. You have to sit back. I feel like I want to just go boom, so that you fly into a chair and hold on to the seat and get this one. Everything you do, every choice you make, must now be considered profound. Pull that word out. Pull that word out. Everything is now profound. There's nothing small about you. Nothing. You can no longer say to yourself, this sad thought doesn't matter and it doesn't have consequences. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. You can no longer say, believing in goodness doesn't matter. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. You can no longer say, does it really matter if I hold on one more day? You're damn right it does. Yes, it does. One more second, one more day. Everything matters. You can look out your window and say, does it really matter? I don't see any help coming. Yes, you do. It's everywhere. Stop it. And then you picture me grabbing you by the nape of your neck, shoving your face in the toilet for 7 minutes and say, are you done? Are you done bitching? Are you done? Because I'm done listening. Are you done bitching? Because now look out the window and what do you see? And picture yourself dripping with toilet water saying, everything, really stop. Because seeing nothing is an illusion. You're looking for the old. I want to blow the lid off of you. And what I started to say earlier, because you always think I'm losing my train of thought, but aha. I have a lot of trains up here. Is that what I learned through healing, through my work in healing, because I'm so fascinated with why some heal, don't. And with people working with anything, is that as we all reach numerous places in life where we're brought to a standstill and we don't know what to do. We're brought to a crossroads, and not just once, many times, through decisions, through choices, we don't know what to do. And it could be anything. It could be about, I don't know what to do about my health, job, person. It could be about, I don't know how to talk to this person about it. It doesn't matter. The choice is big, small, but here's the thing. We never know whether or not something's big. All we know is, I need to make a decision here. The inclination for people is that you will always look backwards before you look forward. Uh-oh. You will always look to your past for inspiration as you chart your next step. You'll always look at who you were yesterday to figure out who you should be today. You will always look at the way you've always done something to figure out how to do something new. forgetting that I wouldn't be in this situation if how I always did it was still working. And a lot of people go into deadlock here because they insist on repeating how they did yesterday. Because that's where they felt safe, even though they're in this situation. Precisely because yesterday is over. It's over. It's come to an end. But they can't get out of it. So they start making tepid steps in new, and then they run away because they can't figure out what's new for them. They can't bear it now. This is choice. They can't seem to pull out new patterns of choice. They try, but they can't. And they go back to, All right. You're going to have to stretch your eyeballs here, folks. For all of you at home, for all of you viewing, I'm going to do what I can to make this look like you can see it. Double vision. I'm going to ask you to please turn off your phones, people. Okay. Is this better? Okay. Now, how many of you can relate to what I'm just saying about choice?